Is the camera rolling?
Yeah. I'm not going to leave that in.
This is your intro.
It's an intro to the Suicide Night. Hello, and welcome to Hello, and welcome to a wrap-up of May, a month with 2 new favourites and a lot of mid. Prepare yourselves. Strap in for an extravaganza of entertainment, as I tell you. Yeah, it's alright. But the 2 bangers are bangers, so don't miss out, or skip ahead in the in the time things and find the ones that are good. But yes, I read 9 books throughout May. A couple of them I'd started in April and finished at the start of May. But yeah, I just want to give an oversight as always. To begin with, we finished a journey. And that is that for the last 12 months, well, 11 months really, I've been reading a Virginia Woolf book a month to read her full bibliography. Not her full bibliography, but all the novels. You know, that's a pretty goddamn good go. And a couple of non-fictions as well. And so I actually have read, in June, I finished 3 different Virginia Woolf works. I finished The Years, which comes in tandem with the essay or letter 3 Guineas, and then I also read Between the Acts, the posthumous release for Virginia Woolf. They were alright. They were not my favourite Virginia Woolfs. The journey of reading Virginia Woolf has been my discovery that she crescendoed. There was a real bell curve to her career. Starts off a little getting going, then an unbelievable high before coming back down to solid work again. And so, yeah, I was finishing those off. I wanted to be done because I realised, yeah, that the quality had dropped. They were not all going to be the level that Mrs. Dalloway, Orlando, A Room of One's Own, stuff like that, it wasn't going to be to that. I started The Years, which is like it spans 50, 60 years. It's kind of an intergenerational story. And I read this just after East of Eden, which probably, I thought it was an interesting idea to compare how 2 different authors from 2 different cultures explore multi-generational stories. And yeah, I preferred East of Eden. This is a funny one because I did enjoy it. And I enjoy when Virginia Woolf is doing this kind of writing. It becomes a lot... Her narratives are much clearer, her character work is extremely strong, and her commentary is strong. And there's kind of 2 different elements of what Virginia Woolf does.
Is it okay with you if I sit there and do my nails?
Go right ahead. It's like I have an audience. Yeah, Virginia Woolf either writes these like metaphysical, experimental pieces all about time and it's very all over the place, or she writes much more structured pieces. And I find myself enjoying both of them, and I enjoy that we have a span of both. But yeah, this ends up as a 3.5 because I just didn't find it too memorable compared to the characters in other Virginia Woolf books. 3 Guineas, essentially, The Years and 3 Guineas is a failed experiment where she wanted to write an essay novel and it never quite came together. Essentially, she wrote them separately instead. And 3 Guineas is very interesting. I really enjoy 3 Guineas. It's essentially, it's funny that people mention A Room of One's Own, but 3 Guineas is kind of left in the cold. Because 3 Guineas is an expansion on the idea she's putting forward, almost an update to it, where she received a letter of from this kind of this gentleman saying, before World War II begins, how could they prevent war? What he's asking her with tensions rising, what would she do? And she's basically like, this is the first time possibly in modern history, like with British culture, where a man is asking a woman how to stop war. And she essentially attacks the idea that war, as it's been for the last little bit of history for England, has been a man's ploy. And so she can't understand the rationale that leads men to war. And so she's like, this is inherently the wrong question to ask a woman because she's like, from my perspective, I have nothing that I would want to go to war for in terms of like invading and taking over another piece of land. She's like, I don't see the need for that, the joy for that, but men seem to find pride in the idea of dominating others. And yeah, it's this idea, like, she essentially comes down to the concept of breaking down education, breaking down the public system, and that those need to be dismantled and rebuilt with women at an equal level, rather than trying to drag women into pre-existing male orientated and dominated fields. And it's interesting reading that now at a point where you're kind of we are in a position of struggling due to the fact that it was what happened in real life is the dragging into a pre-existing system where sexual malpractice and all of these different things can occur, and that the system wasn't rebuilt to favour both or to find a balance. Instead, we still live in a kind of male dominated ideology and mentality. If a woman wants to succeed, there's the idea that they have to adapt the cutthroatness of male business practices or whatever. And then between the acts, it was an interesting little number where essentially a local village is putting on an adaptation of a play about the history of Britain. And it's between the acts because essentially we're witnessing the before and all the conversations that happen before, during, and after the play, and how people interpret. I think it's very much a satire on also both the cleverness and the stupidity of the average person in England, where like they're trying to find this understanding and they're just struggling to comprehend what's happening. And I actually thought this was pretty good, but wasn't the most compelling other than the idea. Because there is a sense of frustration with people. But yeah, that ends my journey with Virginia Woolf. We did it. We made it through. I read Written on the Dark by Guy Gavriel Kay and then pre-ordered the book for when it came out. This is Guy Gavriel Kay's shortest novel to date, and it certainly feels it. I really enjoyed this. I gave it 3.75. Mainly, I feel like if I had not read any Guy Gavriel Kay books, I would have come away probably with a 4.25 or something. But when you've read Song for Arbonne and Lions of Arasan, it does pale in comparison to those. You're following, it's kind of set in a Renaissance France, if I'm thinking correctly. There's a particular event, as always with the Guy Gavriel Kay book, that this is leading and describing the process towards to with fictionalized characters. And we're following a tavern poet called Thierry, and he is this kind of tavern poet who at the beginning of the book is going to go commit a theft, and when he goes, he leaves the house, he sneaks out of the tavern, and he's stopped by these men on horseback who are like, well, you were going to steal, we need you to come with us. And he's like, whoa, I ain't even stolen anything yet. What is this, Minority Report? You can't arrest someone for stealing when they haven't stolen anything yet. And they're like, no, you need to come with us. We can lock you up, or you can come with us and help us with what we need to happen. And it turns out that essentially a murder that's taken place of a very prominent gentleman in the culture, and they need someone to go around and ask questions that the constables do, without drawing attention, without because the local people do not enjoy having law enforcement around investigating. So they get him to do it, and he just becomes involved in a society and an incident that is way outside of his comfort zone and anything he's experienced. So it's very interesting. Once again, it's to do with the power of language, the power of words, the power of relationships. It's the same as Guy Gavriel Kay, where there's a lot of stuff happens. We transfer through quite a bit of someone's life, the relationships they form, the people they lose, etc. And yeah, I still think any Guy Gavriel Kay I've read has been fantastic, regardless of which one it is. This would not be my recommendation for where to start. The reason I got the hardback is because currently I had not spent any money on Guy Gavriel K books that would go to Guy Gavriel K. I'd read them secondhand, or Grace had bought them secondhand, and so there's still, you want to be able to have this like author that you've enjoyed and loved their work actually have a little like bit back for the fact that you've enjoyed their art so much. So yes, straight banger. Guy Gavriel K is a new favourite author without a shadow of a doubt, and I look forward to reading more. Then, when my parents were visiting, I just picked up this based on Murphy mentioned that I thought she said she read it. She didn't. She just said that she wanted to read it. And that's Pedro Paramo. I have no idea whether I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. I did not Google pronunciations. But I'm going to say that that's Pedro. And this is an interesting little number. It's a classic in Latin America. It was written in the 1950s. And Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who wrote Love in the Time of Cholera and 100 Years of Solitude, pretty much cites this as the inspiration to write. As someone who directed the idea of what you can do with a story and with magical realism, etc., and in an updated fashion. And we're following a character who is traveling. He doesn't know who his dad is, and his mother has passed away. And when she passes away, she says that he should go visit where his father lived. And so he goes to this town, and it's a reality. It's a ghost town. It follows where we are experiencing all of these different people who are ghosts, but think that they're the only person who's still alive, and that he experiences the culture, the place where they essentially he views a picture of his father through the stories told by the ghosts left behind. And Pedro is an extremely layered character, nuanced character in terms of he does very negative things. He does very horrible things, and also is capable of love and affection, and also horror. And it's a very interesting kind of commentary on this person and how there's a causality of destroying the community based on what happens. It's really short, very interesting. This is a book that I think would definitely yield a higher rating with rereads, where you can kind of delve into and analyze things more. Whereas that first read, I felt like I was trying to grasp, because you're kind of dancing around so much, that I feel like if I was rereading it where I was focusing on a particular theme or a particular idea, I would get more each time. The next one, I don't need to speak about too much because I have a whole review on it, and that is the first book in his Dark Materials, Northern Lights, which was a straight 5 out of 5. I loved this book. I recommend everyone read it. If you haven't heard of His Dark Materials, which I think is rare, I think a lot of people know what His Dark Materials is, because firstly, it's extremely popular as a book, and then secondly, had a film adaptation, The Golden Compass, and also the HBO series, His Dark Materials. This follows Lyra in an alternate reality where she is raised in Oxford at a fictionalized university, and she essentially becomes the root of this this adventure where all kinds of crazy shit happens. It's hard to explain really without going into it, but mainly what the kind of what I take from this is that Philip Pullman wrote an incredible young protagonist. Like, he really captures that feeling of an 11, 12-year-old. He really captures this feeling in his world building of quiet rage and like rebellion, and the idea of overarching forces controlling your life and what you can do with it. So it very much attacks the church and the government. This is very much a almost an anarchy book, in the sense of he very much seems to view education as the last bastion, but also as a thing that can also be controlled quite easily. And so and how information is the key to controlling people, and how we have to liberate ourselves from the concept of being controlled by what information we receive. And that education is necessary to be able to analyze and dissect what is reality and what is fiction through the stories we're told by these overarching establishments. Low-key banger, loved it, 5 out of 5, recommendation to everyone. It is a Discord buddy read, so if you want to get involved, it is still ongoing. We'll be reading book 2 in August, so you've got plenty of time to read it and get involved. I read The Art of Prophecy by Wesley Chu, which was the Patreon buddy pick by Amy. Links in the description if you want to randomly join that for whatever reason. This was a good book. It was not my favourite, mainly due to the writing style and the almost MCU-esque comedy that just doesn't hit for me. But the characters were very interesting and the plot was very interesting. I was just constantly enjoying it, where you're following. There's kind of two main characters. There's more than that, but the two main to set up the story is that you've got Juan, who is this prophesized hero, and he is this overindulged, martial arts hero who is not particularly good. He's overtaught. He has too many teachers teaching him too many different things. He has no concept, but he is so self-confident in his reality of being the prophesized hero that there's a very big reality check throughout the entirety of this book when he comes across Taishi. And Taishi is a grandmaster of a particular style. She is not involved in teaching him. She's invited to witness him. And when she does, she's like, this guy fucking stinks. And it's such a good combination, old sassy woman who can beat the shit out of someone, and overprivileged little dude who she can slap the shit out of. It's an inherently fun duo that really carries the book because it's just so much fun to watch them. And essentially, Juan is the prophesized hero who is meant to kill the Eternal Khan. Very much in terms of reality, seems very clearly based on the idea of the Mongols and the Mongols' invasion of Asia. So, taking from that, essentially, very early on, the prophecy is proved to be inaccurate, and so then the book evolves into Juan is then left in a position of well, what do I do now? I am not the prophesized hero. What the hell is going on? What am I meant to do? Who am I? Which is a very fun evolution. And yeah, overall, just a solid read. Unfortunately, I'm not the biggest fan of Wesley Chu's writing, particularly just his word choice. There is just sometimes I read sentences and I'm like, ugh, why did you choose that particular word? It just fucks with the whole sentence. But hopefully that's something he can improve on. And then secondly, the humor did not work for me, and especially in the climax where things are bombastic and crazy, when they're doing little one-liners, I wanted to put my head through a wall, personally. There's nothing worse than when an author is not taking the stakes that they have set seriously themselves, in my opinion. Unless even Terry Pratchett takes his climaxes very seriously, and he layers in the jokes as they should. Then I read a new release as well of Ocean Vuong's The Emperor of Gladness, a book I was really looking forward to. I've read all of Vuong's other work. No, I haven't actually. There's some old poetry collections I haven't read, but I have read 2 of his poetry collections and his debut novel. And this was an unfortunate miss for me. I give it a 2.75. The reason this missed so hard is because it's trying to write about everyday people, but it writes about them. Unfortunately, Ocean Vuong has not spent time with anyone like that or understands them, because he hasn't lived that way for a decade. He's now has a level of indulgence in his life that he doesn't understand or that he only views them through thematic and character lenses. He doesn't view them as humans anymore, for his characters, not actually in real life, obviously. But yeah, this was very trite. It had a lot of generic stereotypes and archetypal characters, and yeah, I didn't find myself. I found myself moved at one scene. Essentially, you're following a boy at the beginning of the book who's planning on committing suicide. He's going to jump off a bridge, and an old lady is hanging out clothing, and she sees him and is like, "You're get the fuck down from there." And so he comes down, and she invites him to live with her while he gets himself back on his feet. And then at the same time, he gets a job at a local kind of fast food restaurant. And those are the two kind of dimensions to the book. There are two kind of dual narratives, and then they interlock at the end. But the best way I can describe this is that, like, to give a scene example, is that the manager of the restaurant he works at, she wants to become a wrestler. And there's a scene where she's like really good at singing her intro song, and she's really ready and excited. And then she's going to go do a local show, and it's this whole scene building up to like her having this moment, a chance of doing this. And then we get to the scene, and it's like embarrassing, and like he's making fun of the situation, and like they all look stupid, and I think it's meant to be tragically funny, but I just found it like, it felt like kicking down. You know, like there are people who are in that situation where they want to get out of the situation they're in, and they have this view of like an art form they can create and be a part of. And I just found that scene in particular left such a sour taste in my mouth of Ocean Vuong trying to laugh at the situation. And there are bits that definitely don't do that as well, but it was just such a mixed bag for me that I found myself kind of just not the biggest fan. It was a fine read. And then finishing on an absolute banger. This is one of, if not the best 2025 release I've read so far this year. And I picked it up because I saw Esme's review. And I was looking to read some just random new fantasy. And this was out in paperback originally from launch. And so I thought, absolutely. And that is The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. Which is it's a fucking great book. Like 100%. I give it a 4.75. Was that 0.25 just pedantic? Yes. But I did do it. And I loved The Raven Scholar. I got Grace to read it, bullied her ass for the first time. Usually it's the other way around. And then some people in Discord, it kind of became this spontaneous Discord buddy read, because I wouldn't shut the fuck up about it. And essentially, this is this culture works where the emperor is in charge of the culture for 24 years, and at the end of that, they step down. And at the end of that stepping down, there's a contest that occurs between one person who represents each of the 8 kind of schools of like the representations of gods in this world. So there's like an ox, there's a raven, etc., a fox, all kinds of different things. And yeah, so what's happening this time round is that we are following the kind of first section gives the context that kind of informs all of the machinations and all of the little subtextual things throughout the rest of the book. Very similar to Song for Arbonne, where like I loved that about Song for Arbonne, where there's something that completely informs the rest of the book, and it provides a latch for the audience to hook onto and pull themselves through the book and feel like they are knowledgeable because they are aware of subtext. And I think it's just a brilliant device to get an audience involved. And essentially, after that's happened, we then go to the modern, like what's happening at the time, and the emperor's going to step down, and this all the contestants get together, and then one of them is murdered. And Nima Kra is our protagonist, and she is has to solve the murder. I'm not going to say any more than that because everything else, there's a lot of twists and turns, a lot of revelations that frankly I was shocked by. I tend to guess so much what's going to happen in a book that at some point I'll have randomly guessed something that will happen. Whereas with this, there was genuinely like 2 or 3 separate things that I was mouth agape. I was not expecting that shit kind of reaction. The writing was fantastic as well. It's got very interesting narrative framing. There's like you at some points you're in the perspective of a raven, and it just provides this really fresh, new style, drawing on the best way I can describe this book, if you want an elevator pitch of like 2 things mashed together, it's the Hunger Games in terms of the 8 champions kind of vibe, that kind of contest narrative, mixed with the political machinations and world building of A Song of Ice and Fire. Now, that sentence alone is going to overhype the book for some people, because like the world building and the political machinations stuff are fantastic. Do I think it's quite to the level of A Song of Ice and Fire? No, but this is only book 1, so you have to take that in terms of where we were, and there is the central mystery of this book. I felt the same way that I felt reading Ed's, like when Ned Stark is investigating the death of John Arryn, where he's finding things out, and we're finding things out from different character perspectives that are informing us, and we know what he doesn't know, and all of this stuff that it was such a page turner. It did not feel its length at all. I absolutely flew through it. And yeah, The Raven Scholar for a new release is 100% the biggest of recommendations. I hope loads of people read it, because it really deserves a big audience. The Raven Scholar was really awesome. Would you agree, Grace?
Yes, but I need to review it myself, so I gotta be quiet.
Okay. She gave it a 1 star. Horrid. It is a straight banger. So that's everything. So yeah, with Northern Lights and The Raven Scholar, it was a banger of the month. Everything else was kind of below 4 stars, but like quite a few of them were 3.5, 3.75. It was a very mid-month, other than those 2 overwhelming highlights. So search out those 2 highlights. They are fantastic. If you did enjoy, please do like, please do subscribe. Links to everything like the Discord and Patreon and stuff in the description as always. And have a nice rest of your day.